You're an ordinary girl who's had a crush on the campus heartthrob for years, but the whole school mistakes you for his mysterious girlfriend. Even when he's drunk, he only calls you wife, and he even publicly rejects the campus queen's advances, only to act cute with you. However, you discover that his treasured graduation certificate bears the name of another girl with the same name. Believing you're just a substitute, you leave heartbroken. But after he lost his memory in a car accident, I orchestrated 6 meticulously rehearsed encounters just to make him fall in love with me again and again. On the first day of school, the extremely aloof school heartthrob cornered me after drinking. I was a bit stunned by his good looks. "What's up? What's up?" he said, aggrieved. "Wifey. A kiss." Damn, who could resist that? I successfully got into grad school, and after the opening ceremony, I had dinner with classmates. Coming out of the restroom, I was suddenly pulled into a corner by a dark figure. Who? The school heartthrob, drunk, blocked my way. I froze. He took a step forward, leaned in, and hugged me tightly, then lowered his head and gave me a loud kiss. I was instantly petrified. What do you want?" he said, aggrieved. "Wifey, a kiss. Is this still that aloof and invincible school heartthrob? I'm not. Did he mistake me for someone else?" I helped Luke Dawson to the private room to find his classmates, but when I pushed open the door, everyone was gone. The 6'2" guy was pressing down on me, and he was really heavy. He also tilted his head, bringing it closer to me. I struggled to push his head away, but he just leaned in again, murmuring, "Wifey." It made me agitated and my heart race. There was nothing I could do, so I left him on the sofa in the lobby, intending to find someone to help. But he pulled me back, hugging me from behind. "Don't go." My summer clothes were thin, and his burning body pressed against mine, full of male hormones. I couldn't help but blush. "Please, maintain your aloof persona, okay?" I was so angry and embarrassed, I really wanted to slap him, but when I saw his handsome face, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. For a moment, I thought of his real girlfriend, and I couldn't tell if I felt loss or envy. I kicked him, then bent down and squatted, pointing to my face in front of his hazy eyes. "Luke, look closely. Who am I?" He stared for 2 seconds, then curved his lips into a smile. Damn, so handsome. My heart skipped a beat. This guy is usually quite serious, but when he's drunk, he's so charming. The next second, he leaned in and kissed me again, catching me off guard. He was still mumbling, "It's my wife." I froze, my face burning red. It took me a while to recover and say okay. Just then, a gasp came from the doorway. Several girls stared, dumbfounded. One of them was Jessica Miller, my college roommate who I didn't get along with very well. She was the campus beauty, and everyone knew she liked Luke, while I only dared to secretly have a crush on him. She rushed over, blocking Luke, her finger trembling as she pointed at me. You, secretly took advantage of Luke, flirted. But before she could finish her broken sentences, she was stumbled and pushed aside. Luke, behind her, opened his arms to me. In Jessica's disbelieving eyes, he stared straight at me and called out, "Wifey, hug." Jessica's face turned green. Jessica tried to help him, saying she'd take him home. Luke waved her away, then drunkenly pulled me. "Want wifey," Jessica fumed behind us. "Luke, when you sober up, you'll regret this terribly." There was nothing I could do, so I helped him out of the KTV, intending to use his phone to call his roommate. "Luke, what's your phone password?" He leaned in again, whispering in my ear, his voice magnetic, soft, and alluring. "Wifey's birthday. How the hell would I know who your wife is?" "What's your wife's phone number?" He paused, then started 135, 135, Jennifer Delaney. Just as I was about to lose my temper, someone suddenly called my name from behind. Turning around, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Tony, Professor Tony, my undergraduate professor. Luke and I are in the same major, so Professor Tony is also Luke's professor. Luke seemed to sober up a bit, and also called out, "Teacher Tony." He glanced at Luke, who was slumped on me, and smiled ambiguously. "You two." I tried to push Luke away while waving my hand. "No, teacher, absolutely not. If I were misunderstood, I'd be dead." If his girlfriend found out, she'd definitely misunderstand and be heartbroken. As a result, under the teacher's puzzled gaze, Luke pitifully leaned in again. "Wifey? Cuddle?" Finally, I had no choice but to get him a room nearby. I threw him on the bed and turned to leave. But Luke pitifully tugged at my clothes, mumbling, "Wifey, don't go. Damn it, I really couldn't bring myself to be harsh." He also looked pained and wanted to throw up. Fine. I helped him to the bathroom, waited for him to finish throwing up, and then helped him rinse his mouth. He was incredibly well behaved the whole time, repeatedly saying, "Thank you, wifey." He was so well behaved that I really wanted to stroke his hair. Finally, he fell asleep on the bed, his eyelashes long and thick like a brush, his features deep and beautiful, his lips rosy and glistening, extremely handsome and alluring. I suddenly felt a little sad. I'd had a crush on him for so long, and it turned out he had a girlfriend. This was perhaps the closest I'd ever been to him. I turned to leave, but his phone suddenly rang. Considering I still needed to explain the situation, I answered it. It seemed to be his roommate on the other end. "Luke, you're awesome! Where did you go? Now the whole forum is about you?" I froze for several seconds. "Where is he?" I could only say, "Luke is drunk," and I couldn't take him back to the dorm, so I came to the hotel, right here. I had to explain clearly, absolutely not to be misunderstood. It would be best if his roommate could come and take care of him. I was very anxious. But then, there was a sudden shriek from the other end, followed by a wail. "Sister-in-law!" "I'm not." The other side completely ignored me and started crying hysterically. "Sister-in-law. It's not easy for our Luke to find a girlfriend." I really couldn't be misunderstood, so I tried to explain, "His girlfriend isn't me." There was a pause on the other end, and I was relieved that he finally believed me. But then he started asking, "Are you a girl?" I hummed in affirmation. "No. Does my voice not sound like a girl's?" The other side continued to ask, "Did you help him out of the KTV tonight?" "It was me. But what about it?" The other side suddenly started wailing again. "Sister-in-law!" According to this roommate, photos of the two of us had been spread all over the school. That scoundrel Luke, after getting drunk last night, said he was going to find his wife and left. He had been single for years, and they all wondered where this wife of his came from. It's very dangerous for a drunk person to be alone, so his roommates and classmates repeatedly warned me not to leave him by himself. So, in the morning, when I opened my eyes and saw Luke coming out of the bathroom after showering, the entire space was filled with awkwardness. Sobered up, he was wearing a white t-shirt and trousers, like a prince, with clear, piercing eyes and a strong sense of oppression. It was really hard to imagine that the person from last night and the person in front of me were the same. "Well, what? I'm leaving first." I tried to run away, but Luke grabbed me. He was tall and strong, and I couldn't break free at all. His gaze was cold and indifferent, yet he suddenly curved his lips into a smile, like a mischievous spirit, bending down to meet my eyes. "Why are you running?" When he was sober, his charm was simply, I was splendidly stunned. Luke chuckled, his entire face exceptionally vibrant and lively, and I was mesmerized. You, what are you doing?" He slowly sat down, letting out a soft laugh. "You go around telling everyone I'm your girlfriend? And then you want to run when trouble arises?" I almost laughed out of anger. Who was it that desperately held on to me, refusing to let go, calling me wife? Luke's gaze was cold, and he shamelessly stated, "Oh, really? I don't remember." I grumbled. "Then what do you want?" He chuckled softly, his tone alluring. "I want my wife." Oh my God. This is killing me. I was almost used to drunk Luke talking like this, but this was sober him. I was so embarrassed I wanted to crawl into a hole, yet he was calm and collected, as if those outrageous words hadn't come from him. I stammered, "Luke, have you been possessed by a demon?" He looked at me speechlessly for a moment. Then he crossed his legs, his posture noble and aloof. "Don't overthink it. I'm just considering, since so many people have already misunderstood, why don't we?" I cut him off. "We naturally need to explain things clearly." He lifted his eyelids, giving me a deep look, as if he wanted to say something but ultimately didn't. This was the sober, normal Luke. I liked him, but I was afraid that if I interacted with him anymore, I would like him even more, and wouldn't be able to leave him. Luke was very efficient, sending a message that he had arranged a gathering for the evening to clarify things. As I went downstairs, I ran into a senior fellow student. I had intended to just nod and leave, but he called out to me, "Jennifer." I turned around, and he stared at me, seemingly struggling to speak. "Are you and Luke together?" His tone sounded regretful. "Really?" I asked him somewhat dejectedly. "How do you know?" He said that the campus network was now full of photos and posts of us. That's right. The cold beauty, the top student who seemed to live in a different world, and his unexpectedly ordinary girlfriend, who wasn't outstanding in any aspect, would indeed cause a huge stir. I shook my head and said no, but I didn't notice Jason Smith's eyes light up. He said he had an appointment and came with me to the dinner party. When we arrived, Luke looked very upset. Luke was wearing a black windbreaker, which made him seem even more distant and his features more profound. Sitting among the crowd, he stood out strikingly. I don't know which of his roommates suddenly howled. "Sister-in-law!" Then there was a chorus of wailing. "Sister-in-law! Finally, someone is here to deal with this guy Luke. Boo-hoo-hoo." Finally, I don't have to run errands delivering love letters. Boo-hoo-hoo. Across the restless crowd, Luke looked at me from afar, his face so dark it could drip ink. That's right. Being misunderstood in public again, he was unhappy. Not far from him, Jessica glared at me. On the other side, what the hell was with Tony's relieved, gossiping expression? Luke really did bring everyone who witnessed it. I was actually very disappointed. His roommates crowded around, chattering, "Sister-in-law, sister-in-law." So noisy. I was pressed into a seat next to Luke. His aura was very cold. I leaned over and asked him, "Are you going to explain now?" He snorted coldly, his tone playful but not happy. "So afraid of me, you even brought someone along." It was then that I remembered Jason. When did Luke notice him? I had completely forgotten about him just now, feeling a bit guilty, so I nodded and smiled at Jason, who was sitting at another table. Then I saw Luke, who was about to hand me a skewer, suddenly pull his hand back. How petty. I had eaten enough, so I reached out to poke Luke. The muscles on his arm were hard. Luke gave me a disgusted look. "What do you want? Big brother. Aren't we supposed to be clearing up a misunderstanding? Did you, a busy person, forget?" I leaned in and whispered, "Explain," he replied indifferently. "Whatever. Damn it. Who am I explaining for? Look at that attitude." Although deep down, I was actually a little bit happy, even wondering if he didn't really want to explain. Then, the wolf-howling roommate, gnawing on a rabbit head, suddenly spoke up. "Hey, what sweet nothings are you two whispering?" "Tell us too." Luke casually glanced at him, and the roommate dared not speak. But everyone's eyes were still on me. I slowly stood up, spreading my hands like a leader. "Everyone listen to me for a moment." His roommates all howled like wolves, cheering and applauding. "Hoo-hoo-hoo, sister-in-law is speaking." I hesitated. "Well, I'm not your sister-in-law." They were indeed stunned, their expressions frozen, and then they looked at each other. Good, worthy of being his roommates, full marks for acceptance. Then they said, "Oh, not sister-in-law. Sister-in-law is fine too." The more I tried to explain to them, the further they strayed, and eventually even Master's wife came up. They wailed, "Master's wife, don't abandon our master. It's not easy for him, a perpetual single dog, to finally get a partner." I looked at Luke for help, but he was sitting casually, watching me at his leisure, with a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. "What's going on? Is this just my problem?" I just stared at him, but then he suddenly smiled, his eyes crinkling, his face glowing, and his smile made my heart flutter. "Mom, this person is so handsome." Then Luke suddenly leaned in, and before I could pull back, my old face flushed. His warm breath just reached my ear, and his low voice had just begun. Jason next door suddenly stood up. His voice was so loud that I didn't hear what Luke said. Jason said, "Jennifer is indeed not Luke's girlfriend." Everyone was stunned. I could feel Luke next to me stiffen for a moment. Jason continued, "She's mine." Before I could even react, the surroundings plunged into an extremely gloomy atmosphere. Luke's face was terrifyingly grim. His roommates around him didn't dare to speak. Just as I thought he was about to get up and leave, Luke suddenly looked up. He stared straight at me. "Is that so?" "Of course not." I opened my mouth, but then a voice suddenly sounded behind me. "Of course it is." Jason came to pull me. Under Luke's direct gaze, I was led away from the barbecue restaurant by Jason. Once we were far away, Jason stopped and said to me, "You won't blame me, will you?" Seeing that I didn't speak, he continued, "I just saw that your explanations were useless. So, it was an impulse." I was feeling down. I must have been out of my mind just now, hoping I wouldn't have to explain. When Luke leaned in, I even expected him to tell me to stop talking. But in fact, for a long time before, he had never even looked at me properly. A misunderstanding. It's good that it's over. I forced a smile. "It's fine," Jason warned me. "None of those people are any good. You'd better stay away from them." For several days after that, I didn't see Luke again. It wasn't until the weekend, after class, when I returned downstairs, that Jason came to give me some materials. Behind Jason, under a dim street lamp not far away, I saw Luke standing there with his back straight. He was wearing a white t-shirt and black trousers, tall and long-legged, with an outstanding demeanor. Perhaps I had been staring for too long. as Jason followed my gaze. He asked, "Are you going to go find him?" I was very nervous, yet I didn't know what I was expecting. Just as I lifted my foot, a figure suddenly appeared next to Luke. It was Jessica. She smiled sweetly at Luke, and they were very close, talking about something I couldn't hear. Luke had his back to me, so I couldn't see his expression. I thought he must be smiling. My dazed, staring at the campus heartthrob seemed to have been noticed by others. When I met Jason downstairs again that evening, the people next to me, pointing and whispering gossip, were quite noisy. Just as I was about to greet Jason, I was suddenly pulled away by another figure and then fell into a warm embrace. A crisp, woody scent, mixed with a faint smell of alcohol. Luke? The crowd of onlookers grew. I had a bad feeling. But looking closely at his eyes, they were still clear. He shouldn't have drunk too much. The next second, Luke looked at me and said, pouting, "Wifey." What the heck? Again? Luke, are you drinking fake alcohol? Sure enough, his 1.87-meter tall frame pressed against me, and I immediately became flustered. Jason tried to pull him away from me, but Luke held me tightly. Seeing Jason's actions become rougher and rougher, several red marks appeared on Luke's arm from being squeezed. He, however, was completely oblivious, holding me tightly as if guarding a treasure. His eyes were red with grievance, and he kept murmuring, "Want, wife, I couldn't bear it," and stopped Jason. "It's fine." Jason watched Luke holding me, his eyes filled with deep emotion. I told Jason, "It's fine. You go first. I'll contact his roommate." But "It's fine." Jason left, and only then did Luke's grip slowly loosen. He buried his head aggrievedly in my neck, even nudging it, his breath warm, very soothing and ticklish. Luke in this state was like a wounded puppy, his eyes hazy with drink, red-rimmed, long lashes fluttering. His features were beautiful, yet I could see deep longing and pain in his expression. I didn't know who drunk Luke was mistaking me for. I thought, he must really like that person. Tears welled up in my eyes, but unfortunately, that person wasn't me. I called his roommates, but no one answered. I tried to take him to a hotel, but he clung to the door and refused to leave. There was nothing I could do. I had to make him a bed on the floor and sleep on the bed myself. I told him, "You sleep on the floor." Luke slowly shook his head and insisted, "Want to sleep on the bed?" I gritted my teeth and warned him, "That's where I sleep." When he's drunk, he has a boyish innocence, looking at me seriously, then nodding like a chick pecking rice. Sleep on the bed with wife," I warned him. "I'm not," uncharacteristically. Luke actually nodded in agreement. Before I could react, he curved his lips into a smile, becoming incredibly alluring again. He stared at me seductively. "You're a beautiful wife. Can he please not do this? I'm about to lose it." In the end, he still obediently slept on the floor. But when I woke up the next morning, I saw Luke's handsome face right in front of me. His skin was so good, and his eyes were very handsome and striking. However, his arm was around my waist, and my leg was still resting on his. This is killing me. Ugh, damn. Luke was woken by my cry, rubbed his eyes and gave me a faint look. He must have sobered up. I thought he would immediately spring away. Who knew he would pull me closer into his arms, then close his eyes, wanting to continue sleeping? Has his fake alcohol not worn off yet? His arm was so heavy, I couldn't push it away at all. I warned him. "Luke, are you sober?" He finally opened his eyes, then slowly and calmly sat up from the bed. He had returned to his aloof, noble, high and mighty demeanor. I questioned him. "How did you end up in my bed?" He was already standing, looking down at me, my hair messy and my clothes disheveled. He chuckled lightly, his Adam's apple bobbing. He slowly said, "Well, this time, you directly brought me home." After speaking, he slowly looked around my room. I almost gritted my teeth. "If you have the guts, don't come." He bent down, leaned in, and met my gaze. His eyes like water, his voice still slightly hoarse from waking up, making him even more alluring. "Please don't flirt." My heart was pounding in my throat. He said, word for word, "Tell me, what else do you plan to do next time?" Wifey. Holy cow! He's really something. You're really something, Luke. Who was it that absolutely refused to leave? Who was it that I pitied so much? I puffed out my cheeks. "Luke, if you've got the guts, don't ever come back." He straightened up, chuckled softly, and said languidly, "I am indeed quite capable." With that said, he definitely wouldn't come back. Luke left. I was so angry that I called his roommate and told him to stop drinking fake alcohol. Strange. How come the call went through this time? When I came back the next evening, I looked around, and sure enough, no one was downstairs. I couldn't tell if it was disappointment or something else. Good, Luke. You've got integrity. When I reached the 13th floor, the elevator opened, and a tall, slender figure suddenly appeared before me. There was a faint smell of alcohol in the air. Luke stood in front of me, his eyes hazy. I knew it. It was over. This guy was drunk again. Sure enough, he stumbled and lunged at me, muttering aggrievedly, "Wifey, you're finally back!" What could I do? Let's just say, I'm used to it. I pushed him onto the sofa. He was too tall, and his long legs had nowhere to go in my beanbag chair, making him look very uncomfortable. I called his roommate. Great, no answer. I kept calling. On the 20th call, someone finally picked up. I said, "Luke's here again." The voice on the other end was exaggerated, making the act seem fake. "Oh, we don't know either," I sighed. "One of you come pick him up." They started clamoring. "Oh, we're not even at school. Then what do we do?" They quickly seized the opportunity. "Oh, please, sister-in-law, could you keep him for one more night?" I turned to look at Luke. Wait, if I wasn't mistaken, did a hint of a smile flash across his lips? I was about to hang up when I heard hushed conversations on the other end. They clearly thought the call had ended. Their voices low but clear enough to hear. "Will this work? Oh, our big brother has been drinking day in and day out. It's not easy. Damn, the call isn't hung up." Then it was hung up. I looked suspiciously at Luke, who was sprawled on the sofa. I walked over and nudged his foot with mine. "Luke, are you really drunk?" He grumbled and shifted into a more comfortable position. If I hadn't noticed something was off by now, I'd be truly stupid. I squatted in front of him, pointed to myself, and asked, "Luke, who am I?" He reached up to touch my face, a tender warmth spreading in his beautiful eyes. Wifey, kissy kissy. I was almost swayed by his handsomeness. "Jennifer, pay attention. Don't let him charm you." I opened my phone, found a celebrity photo, and held it in front of him. "Luke, who is this?" He glanced at it casually. "Don't know." I pointed at Jessica in the photo and asked him, "Who is this?" He glanced at it lightly. "Should know her." I pulled out a photo of myself as a child. "What about this one?" He stared at it for 2 seconds. Then his eyes crinkled into a smile. "My wife, when she was little." Oh my, something's off. Very off. People change as they grow up. Childhood photos look very different from now. How could he recognize me instantly? I cupped his face and looked at him. I had to admit, his features were really handsome. Then I murmured, such a good-looking campus heartthrob. Really possessed by a demon. But he looked straight at me, as if trying to see something else through me. That look in his eyes quickly disappeared, and then Luke rubbed his face against my hand, suddenly leaning in close to my face. He whined, "Cuddle!" I had to go find Luke's roommates. Before I could even speak, they started thumping their chests, guaranteeing, "Sister-in-law, we promise Luke definitely won't come looking for you tonight." If I believed that, I'd be a fool. They always made the same promise every time I called. Yet, drunk Luke would still show up. And they only promised for tonight. What about tomorrow night? And the nights after that? I sat up straight, my attitude serious. What exactly is wrong with him? His 2 roommates exchanged glances, looking like they wanted to say something but held back. "Sister-in-law, don't you like Luke?" Of course I like him. But he doesn't like me." Seeing me not speak, their attitude became urgent. "Sister-in-law, do you really like that Jason? How is he better than our big brother? Isn't it good to be with our big brother?" They're still misunderstanding. I came to solve a problem, but they threw a difficult one at me. So difficult that I almost agreed to the suggestion because I was tempted. "But," I asked, "he drinks every day like this. Won't his body have problems?" The 2 roommates exchanged glances and kept silent. No matter what I asked, they just told me to be with Luke, saying he had his reasons and that I shouldn't abandon him. Something was very wrong. After returning to the room, I looked at the neatly folded men's clothes on the sofa. Luke was really something, coming so often that he didn't even take his clothes with him these past few days. Honestly, I don't believe he's genuinely drunk every day. He can drink more than an alcoholic. I decided to follow him. I changed into clothes I hadn't worn in a long time, put on a hat, and quietly followed behind Luke, 7 p.m. He had just returned from outside, and I followed him. He actually went to the convenience store and bought a bag of alcohol. He really is an alcoholic. The strange thing is, don't normal people find a place to sit and drink slowly? He stood tall and long-legged next to the trash can, his back straight, and even a casual t-shirt looked noble and handsome on him. Then he twisted open the bottle and tilted his head back to drink. He drank 2 cans. He was facing away from me, and he was far away, so I couldn't see his expression clearly. But I still saw a deep sense of loneliness in him. How could something like that belong to him? After a moment, I quietly walked away. I wandered around for a few circles, and when I returned, the alcoholic was indeed back. Luke was guarding the door. There was a faint smell of alcohol in the air. I walked over, and he saw me, swaying over to hug me. I pushed him away and looked at him slyly. "Luke, are you drunk again?" he grumbled, acting drunk. "Bullshit." I applauded him in my heart. His acting is really good. Who buys alcohol every day and stands by the trash can to drink? Who gets drunk after 2 cans of beer? He was walking perfectly normally after drinking, and now he's this drunk? "All right, come in." Luke obediently followed me into the house, and I stopped him the moment he sat down. I pulled out the probing methods I found online. Just watch me expose him. "Luke, when are you going to pay back the 1 million I lent you?" He froze for a moment. I chuckled inwardly. Keep pretending. But then he suddenly leaned in, less than a centimeter from my nose, and my face instantly flushed. He mumbled, "Everything I have is my wife's. Damn it." I pulled out a piece of paper and handed it to him. "This is an IOU. Sign it." He actually signed it obediently. No choice. I squatted down and looked at him. "Luke, what's your bank card PIN?" He looked at me for 2 seconds, then suddenly curved his lips. He was so handsome it stunned me. Then he slowly pulled out bank cards one by one, reporting the numbers. "This one is 9,125. This one is 9,152. I couldn't take it anymore. His innocence made me feel guilty, like I was being a bad person. I stopped him from continuing. "Don't say any more. Aren't you afraid I'll really take all the money?" He chuckled softly, mumbling, "It's all my wife's." Then he pounced and hugged me, burying his head in my neck, his voice gentle and low. "I'm my wife's too. I mean, I was about to give in." That night, I pointed to the floor bed and warned him, "That's your territory. If you dare to climb into bed again, I'll beat you, understand?" He nodded and obediently lay down, pulling up the covers. Instantly, I felt really bad, very guilty. I didn't sleep all night. When I got really sleepy, I'd pinch myself. Finally, at 1 a.m., there was movement on the bed. The side next to me dipped, and then a warm body pressed against me, a faint woody scent, and strong arms wrapped around me. I was about to open my eyes when a warm, moist touch suddenly landed on the corner of my eye. My heart began to pound uncontrollably. The kiss lingered for a long time. The moment his lips withdrew, I immediately opened my eyes and met his clear, deep gaze directly. Luke showed no sign of being drunk. In the hazy night, his exceptionally striking features were bathed in a soft light, and his eyes were clear. He looked like a celestial being. I was very nervous. Caught red-handed, he only showed a brief flicker of panic. Then he smiled gently again. His voice was low and husky, with a hint of seduction. "When did you find out?" I gritted my teeth resentfully. "Luke, you liar," I warned him. "Let go of me." The smile on his face slowly faded, but he held me even tighter. I repeated, "Let go." His voice, for once, carried weakness and fear. "Don't. Leave me." In my memory, he was always arrogant and aloof. Even when he was pretending to be drunk before, he had never been so vulnerable. Facing him like this, I was almost overwhelmed. I trembled and nervously asked him, "Do you know who I am? My name is Jennifer. Are you sure I'm the person you want?" He held me tightly, as if afraid I would suddenly disappear, and kept repeating, "Jennifer, Jennifer, I love you." As I listened, for some reason, I really wanted to cry. For the first time, I hugged him back, tightly. No matter what was behind us, this time, I wanted to indulge myself. In the following days, Luke took my hand, and we went to many places. We were like a sweet young couple, going camping, skiing, flying kites, hiking, and watching movies. We went to an amusement park, and while we were queuing, many pretty girls kept looking at him. After we finished queuing, I pulled him to the graffiti area. I raised an eyebrow and threatened him with my eyes. "Are you going to draw or not?" He laughed and leaned his face closer. I lowered my head and held the paintbrush, tracing his face. I'm not very good at drawing, so it was crooked, and I laughed as I drew. When drawing his eyes, I was afraid of hurting him, so I had to lean closer and closer, and I reminded him, "Don't move." Luke had been very well behaved until then, but he suddenly interrupted and said, "You have something on your face." I wanted to turn around to get a mirror, asking, "Where?" He suddenly leaned in and quickly pecked my lips. Then he looked up at me with a mischievous smile. "Here. After all, we were in public, so I blushed. I frowned and reminded him, "In broad daylight, you." His eyes were full of laughter, and his whole face glowed white in the sunlight, incredibly vivid and handsome. He curled his lips and provoked me. "Kissing my wife isn't against the law," I continued to blush and reminded him. "But in broad daylight." He laughed loudly and leaned in to kiss me again. Because of him, the people watching nearby started to cheer us on. In the end, I angrily drew him super ugly. Even the boss sighed, lamenting that such a handsome guy was ruined by me. But he looked in the mirror and praised. "My wife's hands are so skillful. She drew so well." When it was time to take pictures, I regretted it. The things on his face were too comical. In the end, there wasn't a single normal photo of the two of us. In those days, he would hold me in his arms in a crowd. He would cover me with his large clothes, and my nose would be filled with his scent. He would gently kiss me under the streetlights. He, on the other hand, wouldn't go to my room alone anymore. Most of the time, he pretended very well, but I could still occasionally detect a hint of suppressed expectation in his eyes. But when he met my confused gaze, a trace of disappointment would flash across his face. I pretended not to notice and smiled happily every day. Only when I was alone occasionally, I couldn't help but wonder, who was he missing at that moment? Until that day, I finally knew the answer. On my way back alone, Jessica stopped me. She provocatively said, "Jennifer, are you really with Luke?" I replied, "Is it that unbelievable?" Her expression changed. "So many people like him. Do you know why he insisted on getting close to you?" "I don't know. These past few days, I've wanted to ask every day. But like an ostrich, I'm afraid of knowing the answer. As long as this happiness is real, that's enough. Why did he insist on getting close to me?" I went to the apartment Luke rented next to the school. He was out and hadn't returned yet. I sat on the sofa for a long time, struggled for a long time, thinking of Jessica's last words. I slowly opened the drawers one by one. But I found nothing. "Go to his room and find one, you'll get an answer." I actually listened to Jessica. I mocked myself. In the end, in the bottom drawer by the bed, there was a bright red, gold-embossed graduation certificate. "We haven't graduated yet, so whose could it be?" I opened it, and the name on it almost made me stop breathing. The same name as mine, Jennifer. But I knew it wasn't me. I had just started school, but this person had already graduated. This was her graduation certificate, carefully preserved by him, almost brand new. There was also a photo tucked inside. "Love of my life." A line was written on the back of the photo in Luke's strong handwriting. My hands trembling, I slowly turned it over. It was a photo of Luke kissing a girl on a suspension bridge in the afterglow of the sunset. He blocked most of her face, so I couldn't see what she looked like. No wonder he took me to that suspension bridge. No wonder he kissed me there. So that's why. Because of the name. With a name like that, perhaps. Could it be that I and this girl also have some similarities? Drunk Luke mistook me for her? My whole body was trembling. My mind was blank, and I didn't even realize that tears had been streaming down my face for who knows how long. So that's how it is. That's how it is. It's not that I hadn't guessed, but when I finally knew the answer, I still couldn't breathe, feeling like I was about to die. I don't know how long I sat there until I heard a slight noise outside. Then, rubbing my almost numb feet, I stumbled out of his apartment in a complete mess. That night, Luke came looking for me. He knocked on the door for a long time, but I didn't turn on the light. He said from outside, "Jennifer, open the door. I know you're in there. Please, let me explain, okay?" He knocked for a long time. I silently cried in the dark room. Was the person he was calling me? In the end, I wanted to cry, but no tears would come out. I never opened the door. Later, he left. When I opened the door in the morning, a figure suddenly leaned against my leg. I looked down and saw it was Luke. He hadn't left. He had actually squatted by the door all night. His eyes were bruised, his hair was messy, and he looked particularly disheveled. He slowly got up, looking disheveled, fragile, and defeated. He stared straight at me. "Jennifer." I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm. "Luke, is this fun?" His voice was a little hoarse. "Jennifer." I wanted to cry. My head felt like it was being hammered, but I still managed to smile. "Maybe you find it amusing, but I don't. Just leave, and don't come looking for me again." Luke's face was grim. He wouldn't let go. I kicked him hard in the shin. As he groaned and gasped in pain, I immediately broke free and walked away. I thought he wouldn't come back, but Luke still came to find me every day, sitting there all night. I had no choice but to move. His roommate called me many times, but I only answered one. I wanted to tell them to stop looking for me, but he immediately said, "Luke is in the hospital." Because the temperature dropped that day, he had waited outside my door all night in a thin t-shirt. Then he caught a cold. For someone as strong as him, a small cold shouldn't have been a big deal. But because he had been drinking frequently and not getting enough rest for a long time, it got worse. I don't know why, but I walked to the hospital entrance. Through the window of his room, he lay quietly on the bed, his profile smooth, his lips pale. In the end, I still didn't go in. Jason came to find me that day. He said since that was the case, we should go back to the beginning, to put an end to my lingering thoughts. He dragged me to a KTV and then took me to that barbecue restaurant. The owner saw me and, surprisingly, even though I had only been there once, he still greeted me. "Little girl, why are you alone this time?" I nodded, wondering who else should be with me. The owner started chatting with me. "You guys are acting students, right?" I shook my head. "No, we study computer science." The owner nodded, then looked a bit confused after a moment of realization. "Then what are you rehearsing for?" "Rehearsing? What show?" The owner smiled, a knowing expression on his face. "Don't think I can't tell. You guys rehearse once a month. Your acting is really good." "It's a scene to clear up a misunderstanding, right?" The owner confidently interpreted the plot. I was wondering how the owner still recognized me. Turns out he had mistaken me for someone else. Suddenly, I felt a headache coming on. As I walked to the roadside, a sudden bright light hit me, followed by the screech of brakes, and someone nearby started screaming. I looked up, completely frozen in place, unable to move. In my line of sight, a large truck was speeding straight towards a tall, straight, familiar figure ahead. I passed out. I woke up in the hospital. The moment I opened my eyes, a wave of fear made it hard to breathe. "Luke! Luke!" I desperately wanted to shout, but my voice was hoarse. That truck was heading straight for the side of the road, and the person standing there was Luke. It was Luke. Extreme fear enveloped me. I remembered everything. On the day I graduated from graduate school, I was in a car accident. After resuscitation, the doctor said there was a blood clot in my brain that would affect my past memories. At that time, Luke held me and said, "It's okay. Even if you, Jennifer, forget everything, it's okay." He said, "Even if you don't remember, I'll help you remember everything." But later my condition got worse and worse. I slowly started to forget past events, and even worse, my memory ability also began to decline. If it got more severe, it could even affect my memory, cognition, and even mobility. As I lost my memory, Luke started to act with me. He brought in his roommate, my roommate, Jessica, teacher Tony, first. It worked very well. The first time, at KTV, I remembered. But soon, I would forget again. Later, my memory recall became slower and slower. Every time I remembered, it would only last a few days before I forgot again. They patiently played along with me, over and over. Playing out our first meeting, which was at the start of freshman year, when I drank too much at KTV and cornered him, leading to a misunderstanding that was later clarified at a barbecue restaurant. Playing out our interactions, Tong had to keep drinking so it wouldn't seem strange, repeatedly reenacting everything that had happened, tirelessly. And this time, it was already the 6th. I remembered everything. Nothing else. No one else. It was all me. Only me. I wasn't just starting graduate school. I had already graduated. But Luke, my Luke, the scene before he fainted replayed in my mind. No. My hot tears streamed down. Impossible to wipe away. My whole body was shaking. I rolled out of bed, but stumbled and fell to the floor. My head hit the ground with a loud thud, but I felt no pain. Only one thought was in my mind. "Luke, where are you?" "No, I don't want anything to happen to him." "Jennifer? Jennifer?" A familiar, anxious voice. A broad, warm hand began to wipe away my tears. Then he anxiously asked me, "What's wrong?" In my blurry vision, I saw Luke's handsome and tall figure. He was safe. I threw myself into his arms, that familiar, warm, and solid embrace, and then I cried even harder. He seemed a little at a loss. Calling my name softly, "Jennifer," he held me very, very tightly, and it took me a long time to calm down. My eyes were red and swollen as I looked straight at him, and he looked back at me. As he watched, he suddenly smiled. He had seen it in my eyes. He held me close, my head resting on his chest. He said, "Jennifer, you remembered." I nodded. Then he buried his head in the crook of my neck, and there was a faint dampness. He was crying. I stroked his head, somewhat flustered, and tried to tease him, my voice still nasal. "Luke, your acting is really good. I couldn't see any trace of it." After a long while, he finally laughed. His voice was pleasant, with a hint of playfulness. "It's a pity that Larry and the others are so over the top in their acting. Larry was the roommate whose acting was the most exaggerated. Always wailing and crying." I shook my head, affirming them. "It's not bad. I never suspected a thing," Luke said. You're really easy to fool." I laughed. I started to explain. "It's not that I didn't suspect anything. You said every time you came over drunk. How come none of your roommates' calls could get through? They're also miserable, afraid something will happen, wanting to answer but not daring to, often living in fear." Luke chuckled softly. "Later, we went to see the doctor, and the results were excellent. The bruise was no longer detectable. Perhaps it had dissipated on its own." Luke held my hand tightly. When he turned his head to look at me, his eyes were full of smiles, like scattered stars across the sky. He leaned in and kissed me deeply. I pushed him. "The doctor's here." The doctor had very consciously walked to the door, and as he closed it, he smiled ambiguously. "Don't mind me. You two carry on." Luke slowly released me when I was almost out of breath. He rested his forehead against mine and said, "Jennifer, let's get married." We had already agreed to get married after graduation, but it was delayed because of my car accident. We flipped through the calendar and found a good day. I went to meet his parents. I was actually a little worried, but they didn't mind my past amnesia at all, just kindly stroked my head and said, "Good child." We went to my parents' graves. "Mom and Dad, I'm getting married," I said. "Uncle and Aunt, please rest assured that you can entrust Jennifer to me. I will be good to her for the rest of my life," Luke said. Before getting married, Jessica rushed into my room, her hands trembling and accusing me. "Jennifer, don't go too far. My mother has played a vicious female supporting role 6 times. Is it easy?" You didn't let me be a bridesmaid." Larry scolded Luke next to him. "Do you have the heart to dislike my acting skills?" "Woo-woo. It's better to be sister-in-law. Only sister-in-law is good in the world," Jason said. At first, I really couldn't stand it at the KTV. The first time, Luke beat me up directly. Only later did I join their act. He said, "Jennifer, I like you, but because that person is Luke, I'll let you two be together." Jason said that by the 3rd time, everyone wanted to give up, except Luke. Only he, with red eyes, was incredibly persistent. Only he would believe that I could remember. Only he never gave up on me. They all left, and I cornered Luke, demanding, "Tell me, how did you convince the school and the teachers? How much did you drink? How many nights did you squat by the door? How many times did you get sick? How many times did I hit you?" As I spoke, I started to choke up, my throat feeling like it was blocked with water-soaked cotton, sore and swollen, unable to speak anymore. What kind of despair did he carry, and how much did he do? Finally, I sobbed and cried. Luke smiled and wiped away my tears. "Silly girl, I'm the one who got hit. Why are you crying?" I hugged him tightly, never letting go.